Peace, peace, peace. What it is, just really Tyvon Swano, aka the Orthodox Moor. How are y'all living, family? Let me make sure I am doing this proper. Yep, okay. I am. So, real quick, I wanted to touch on something that I thought was extremely, extremely interesting. Recently, I know everyone's checked out the whole Nick Cannon controversy and anti-Semitism controversy, etc., whatnot. And they saw him sit down with one rabbi, but recently he sat down with another rabbi from a group called the AJC, and it was a very interesting conversation. Very, very, very interesting conversation. A lot of opinions were talked about, and some very interesting information was revealed. Some of which being that Nick Cannon actually, from his mother's side, descends from a Spanish rabbi, which threw a whole different spin on the whole thing for me. So with that, I just want to kind of jump into this and talk about a couple of things because, like I said, that was an interesting conversation. I linked the YouTube video for it down below. I linked a couple of stories from this website for it down below, and I'm going to be reading from the stories and whatnot, and commenting on a couple of things that I heard from the interview. But what I find interesting about this more than anything is the fact that Nick Cannon has decided to link with the AJC in terms of fighting anti-Semitism, and choosing to build relations with the Black and Jewish community, and also what he called the Jewish Black community. I think I'll make another video about that later. But yeah, let me just read some of this right quick. So getting into it, again, it's a conversation with Nick Cannon and the AJC Advocacy Anywhere. That's what they talk about. And it says here, Nick Cannon is an American comedian, rapper, producer, and television host. He recently came under fire after making anti-Semitic comments on his podcast and YouTube show, Cannon's Class. Cannon has repeatedly made public apologies and has spent the past few weeks going through a process of multiple meetings with AJC and others to gain a deeper understanding of Judaism and anti-Semitism. On August 10th, 2020, Cannon joined AJC's Director of Interreligious and Intergroup Relations, Rabbi Noam Marantz, for a candid conversation about his commitment to learning from this experience, his fight against anti-Semitism, racism, and all forms of hate, and the importance of Black-Jewish relations. It was Cannon's first appearance on a Jewish program. And again, family, I've linked that video that they have here for the YouTube page down below if you want to watch it. It's a very, very interesting video. I suggest you watch it in its entirety. Like I said, there's a lot of opinions that you can glean from on both sides. But on top of that, right quick, let me go to their full demonstration on the matter. And before that, let me just do this right quick. This is something on the AJC themselves on the who are we, just so you kind of get a understanding who they are. It says the AJC is the leading global Jewish and advocacy organization with unparalleled access to government officials, diplomats, and other world leaders. Through these relationships and our international presence, AJC is able to impact opinion and policy on the issues that matter most, combating rising anti-Semitism and extremism, defending Israel's place in the world, and safeguarding the rights and freedoms of all people. When you go on their issues page, they deal with, again, Israel's state, anti-Semitism, radicalism, and extremism, the BDS movement, and like going against it or whatnot, interreligious concepts, in terms of building with different faiths, like for instance, talking about building with Muslims, building with Christians, building with Hindus, etc., whatnot. They have a human rights aspect that they deal with. For instance, they talk about the plight of the Uyghurs in China, etc., and whatnot. And then they also talk about 2020 policy resources and kind of how they're moving in politics and whatnot. But these people, these groups are tied very heavily globally, for instance. And they, hold on, let me go to a page that talks about this a little bit better. where you can see their global offices. They've got offices everywhere, family. From Africa to Asia, to Europe, to the United States, etc. They've got a bunch of international partnerships and whatnot. And what I found interesting about this this interview is that they even existed. I didn't even know about them. And again, they say that they are pretty much the premier Jewish advocacy organization globally. But yeah, let me go back to what I was saying in terms of the interview and whatnot, because these are the people that Nick Cannon's sitting with and learning from and trying to work with in terms of anti-Semitism. So I'm reading this because I thought, like I said, I learned a lot from familiarizing myself with this organization from this interview. So I thought it'd be nice to familiarize the family with this organization and whatnot, because it seems like you're going to be like, again, if you watch the interview, it seems like you're going to see Nick Cannon working with this organization in particular to get a few things done. So hopefully from this video, you should be able to get a head start in understanding some of the policy and the points of interest that you're going to see coming from Nick Cannon in terms of him making his way back from that large snafu that he's talking about in terms of those remarks that he made. And what's interesting about this is I know a lot of people in different communities feel a lot of different ways about the remarks that he made in terms of were they correct, were they incorrect, were they factual, were they infactual, etc., whatnot. And they get into all that in this interview. And they say a word that I never even heard before, a word called trope. And so I'm going to get into some of the things they talk about concerning the tropes involved and what this group speaks on concerning that. So real quick, let me read this here. It says here that Nick Cannon, in his first appearance on the Jewish program AJC Advocacy Anywhere, said today he would be the sacrificial lamb as a member of the entertainment community. I thought that was interesting because for a multitude of reasons, some of which would include you could tell there's going to be that you could tell he took a lot of heat. Therefore, he's talking about, like, in terms of being a sacrificial lamb, he's willing to do a lot of work, which I find to be interesting. Two, he's talking about the entertainment community. So it seems like there's going to be a lot of work done within the entertainment community about what they're talking about here, etc., whatnot. I thought that was interesting. But it goes on to say, to bring America's Black and Jewish communities closer together, more than 15,000 people have viewed this program so far. In a 1-hour conversation with Rabbi Noam Morans, AJC Director of Interreligious and Intergroup Relations, Cannon apologized for the blatantly anti-Semitic language he voiced in a conversation nearly a month ago on his podcast, Cannon's Class. Now, I thought it was interesting that they decided to use the language of blatantly anti-Semitic, and it didn't make sense to me until I actually watched the interview, because they go into definitions or into Nick Cannon not thinking that it was something blatantly anti-Semitic, but then finding out that it played into certain narratives that they speak about here, and I'll show you in a little bit. But so I think he would even. What I thought about is, like, at first I was like, man, I don't think he would agree that it was blatantly anti-Semitic. But but in retrospect, I can see where he's actually agreeing with that concept, which I found to be extremely interesting. But yes, as Cannon apologized again for the blatantly anti-Semitic language he voiced in a conversation nearly a month ago on his podcast, Cannon's Class. Cannon, the son of a Christian minister and currently a doctoral student at Howard University School of Divinity, acknowledged, "I have no problem saying I was wrong. I had to step up and do what's right. I thought I was speaking facts," said Cannon, referring to his comments about centralized banking and the Rothschilds. "I did not understand that this was taken as the kind of propaganda that led to the Holocaust." He said, how does continuing these tropes help bring our communities together? Question mark. Noting that both the Black and Jewish communities have persecution in common. Quotation, right? Cannon said that the narratives of of slavery and historical anti-Semitism should not be competitive. This is not the oppression Olympics, he asserted. Instead, Cannon pointed out that with African Americans comprising 13% and Jews 2% of the American population, together we can make real changes for American society. Cannon said it is important for the African American community to know the history of Black and Jewish relations. The Jewish community was part of the civil rights movement and so many other movements. We need the Jewish community with us in this fight in 2020, said Cannon, adding that 45% of non-Black supporters in the civil rights movement were Jews. Cannon, who in recent weeks has met with Rabbi Morans, as well as with Holly Hufnagel, AJC U.S. Director of Combating Anti-Semitism, said, "It's time for me to be a student, to use the resources to bring our communities together." Cannon said he needed to understand why the words he used were so hurtful, holding up a copy of AJC's Translate Hate publication. And I'm going to get into that when I'm done reading this article here. It is a glossary of anti-Semitic terms and tropes as a guide. Cannon said he was not aware that certain conversations, certain ideas of hatred towards Jews go back centuries. To break down barriers between the Black and Jewish communities requires first education, said Cannon, who also criticized social media for inflaming tensions and strengthening compartmentalization between groups. "I try to stay away from hashtags, the catchy phrases," he declared. 400 years of oppression of African Americans and the murder of 6 million Jews in the Holocaust can't be summed up in a hashtag, he said. They cannot be clickbait headlines. Asked about his view of Nation of Islam head Louis Farrakhan, Cannon said that many African American leaders, including Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali, had been accused of anti-Semitism. Farrakhan, he said, has been seen in the Black community as a leader who helped on social issues such as incarcerated Blacks and those suffering with drug addictions, and leading the great peace gathering in the history of the greatest peace gathering in the history of the world, the Million Man March. Regarding Farrakhan's record of anti-Semitism, regarding Farrakhan's record of anti-Semitism, a matter of deep and long-standing concern for AJC, Cannon stated, "I can condemn the message, but can't condemn the messenger. I can't be accountable for what others have done." The AJC representative that was interviewing Cannon, Rabbi Morans and whatnot, he definitely was not vibing that statement in the sense to where he was saying that that was unacceptable for what they were trying to get done. So I have a hunch that they're going to have further conversations on the topic or whatnot. Nick Cannon was talking about like trying to have them sit down with Farrakhan or whatnot, but it didn't seem like that the AJC representative was too keen on that concept. But moreover, he was more interested in condemning the particular rhetoric coming from particular people as being anti-Semitic and whatnot, and trying to clear up what that was and what it wasn't. And so, as part of his personal penance campaign, it seems like like I said, it seems like there's going to be further conversations on this, right? But again, what I found to be interesting was this Translate Hate publication that Nick Cannon held up or whatnot. And so I just wanted to jump into that just a little bit because, like I said, I feel like this will give people a good idea as to where Nick Cannon is going to go with his rhetoric, with his points of importance, the things you hear him talking about, all that kind of stuff, right? And so, yeah, this is Translate Hate. He held this up in the interview. It's stopping anti-Semitism starts with understanding it, right? And it's a glossary of anti-Semitic terms, phrases, conspiracies, cartoons, themes, and memes. And this is their table of contents. And I thought this was actually a really interesting breakdown because they give words that can be used in normal settings, but then they specify the settings in which they're trying to prosecute the case of it being anti-Semitic. And that's actually kind of like what Nick Cannon was talking about in terms of those blatant statements they were referring to. Because he thought like he was just talking normal stuff, but like he's like, wow, okay, I'm finding out that this is what they call a trope. Basically an embellished stereotype that leads to some not happening to a community, right? And so again, these are the words that they deal with. And let me just try to show you a couple real quick. So yeah, this is blood libel, right? This is a big deal, right? A perpetuated accusation that Jews have murdered non-Jews, such as Christian children, in order to use their blood in rituals. And they cite a story here, or a post of some sort, where it talks about the Belgian trade union boss says Israel kills Palestinian kids for their organs, right? And so they explained why it's anti-Semitic here and whatnot, right? But then they'll take a term that, like, because this is obviously something that doesn't need to be explained in terms of like why that concept would be considered anti-Semitic, right? But then they jump into a situation like here, where there's a term like clannish, right? And it says here that it's defined as of or relating to a clan, tending to associate only with a select group of similar backgrounds or status. And then they have like a tweet here where it talks about, in addition to which they pretty much have their own economy because Jewish business only does with other Jews. So they're talking about clannish being used here in an anti-Semitic format. So they break down, okay, when it's anti-Semitic, right? Because it's not always considered such. This can apply to a whole bunch of things, right? But when it's anti-Semitic, it's referring to Jews as clannish in an anti-Semitic stereotype, claiming that Jews only associate and do business with their own kind, in quotation, right? Using their power to benefit other Jews, and keep non-Jews from having a fair chance. This accusation has been used to label Jews as economically untrustworthy, aggressive, apathetic, exclusive, and unaccepting of non-Jews and non-Jewish cultures. Similarly, the conspiracy that global Jewish financial firms are connected by family ties and work together in any unethical in an unethical manner is used as the clannish theory, right? This false claim perpetuates the idea that Jews are elitist who work against the interest of all non-Jews to gain wealth. See greed. That's a whole nother thing they got going on, right? Let me check on Zionism right quick. Zionist, right? This is the term we hear all the time, right? So like saying the term Zionist doesn't make you anti-Semitic is what they're saying. There's a way of using it that is anti-Semitic. Hence they got the when it's anti-Semitic concept. So for instance, Zionist just means a supporter of Zionism, a person who believes in the development and protection of a Jewish nation in its historic homeland of Israel. And then it says when it's anti-Semitic is when Zionism is a traditional term to describe the aspirations of the Jewish people to reestablish a state in the biblical land of Israel. However, today Zionist and anti-Zionist language are often used pejoratively. Anti-Semites often use Zionist or Zio as shorthand for Jew, while many anti-Semites attempt to cloak their hate by claiming to be merely anti-Zionists. Notably, anti-Zionism, the belief that the Jewish people have no right to a national home in its ancestral homeland, and that the state of Israel should not exist, is itself widely believed by Jews to be a form of anti-Semitism. Anti-Zionism can also spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. For example, referring to Zionism and Judaism interchangeably blames Jewish people for the actions and policies of the state of Israel, which furthers conspiracy theories about control and world domination. So Nick is saying he caught this glossary, right? And he was like, oh, okay. I see what y'all are saying on certain things. Hold on, let me see if I can find. Like when he was talking about bringing up the Rothschilds and this, that, and the third, he's like, okay, I can see where that wasn't cool. Or he started talking about the Khazars and all that other type of stuff, right? And all those kind of things. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, I thought I was saying factual stuff, but he's like, I'm saying things that y'all are deeming to be anti-Semitic. He's like, okay. And so what's interesting about that is I got a hunch. Well, not even a hunch, right? It's just, it is what it is. Like this group has this working definition of anti-Semitism. um, and they work to get this adopted by countries, etc., whatnot. And it seems pretty clear to me that you're going to see Nick Cannon moving towards this concept of anti-Semitism in terms of trying to get this concept out there. And that's probably what his further sit downs with the group is going to be about. So when you hear him saying this stuff that I'm about to read to you, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. You should be prepared for it, because this is the organization in which he's teaming up with in order to do this penance work and whatnot. So it says here that anti-Semitism, their working definition for it is anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. To guide IHRA, and y'all should go look them up. I'm gonna leave that one out this demonstration, but y'all should go check them out. Again, I didn't know about them till this interview as well. So yeah, I learned a lot from this interview. To guide IHRA in its works, the following examples may serve as illustrations. Manifestations might include the targeting of the state of Israel, conceived as a Jewish collectivity. However, criticism of Israel similar to that leveled against any other country cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism frequently charges Jews with conspiring to harm humanity, and it is often used to blame Jews for why things go wrong. It is expressed in speech, writing, visual forms, and action, and employs sinister stereotypes and negative character traits. Contemporary examples of anti-Semitism in public life, the media, schools, the workplace, and in the religious sphere could take into account the overall context and include, but are not limited to, this list here. So check out this list here, okay? Calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology or extremist view of religion. Making mendacious or demonizing or stereotypical allegations about Jews as such, or the power of Jews as collective, such as especially but not exclusively the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy, or of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions. So when Nick Cannon started talking about the Rothschilds in the banking industry, they were like, not having that one. And so he's vowing to educate people and talk about these concepts in this fashion. It goes on to say, accusing. Now this one was actually kind of interesting. I wish I understood. I would like to know how they mean this one, and hopefully I'll be able to learn about it more in upcoming interviews and whatever kind of outreach that Nick Cannon does. But it specifies accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews. Slightly confused by the language on that one. If y'all understand that one, maybe y'all could give me a comment down below and give me your thoughts on that one, and see if that makes the same sense to you as it makes to me. But we shall see on that one. It goes on to say, denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, examples, gas chambers, or intentionally of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of National Socialist Germany and its supporters and accomplices during World War II, the Holocaust. Accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. Accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interest of their own nations. Denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor. I have a hunch that this is probably going to be the one that Nick Cannon clings on to the most, because I feel like they're trying to like I said, build bridges with the Black and Jewish community, right? So I feel like so for instance, like he was talking about like trying to have them sit down with Farrakhan, to which again they didn't really vibe in that concept, but he was like, yeah, I want to build them kind of bridges, right? I could see him trying to build bridges based upon the concept of nationalism and the fact that like would people of African descent be considered racist if they wanted to build up their own state, or particularly even the people who descend from the people who went through the slave trade in the diaspora? Would they be racist if they want to set up their own separate state, etc., whatnot? I feel like he's going to try to have conversations like that, which I'm intrigued to see how they play out, to be quite honest. And intrigued to see where the AJC meets him on those talking points and whatnot. But that remains to be seen. Going forward, it says applying double standards by requiring of it a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. Again, I think he might try to link that up on a nationalism concept, but again, that remains to be seen. Using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, e.g., claims of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel. Again, I read the example of blood libel earlier and whatnot, right? To characterize Israel or Israelis, to characterize Israel or Israelis. It goes on to say, drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis, holding Jews collectively responsible for actions of the state of Israel. Anti-Semitic acts are criminal when they are so defined by law. For example, denial of the Holocaust or distribution of anti-Semitic materials in some countries. Criminal acts are anti-Semitic when the targets of attacks, whether they are people or property, such as buildings, schools, places of worship, and cemeteries, are selected because they are or are perceived to be Jewish or linked to Jews. Anti-Semitic discrimination is the denial to Jews of opportunities or services available to others and is illegal in many countries. So, yeah, I read all that and probably like bored y'all to sleep. But I wanted to touch on that because, again, what I found to be really, really interesting about this is that Nick Cannon waited till this interview to reveal to the world, or at least to the so-called Black community, that he is of Jewish ancestry on his mother's side. I thought, like, to me, that like made my jaw hit the floor. I was like, what? You're kidding. And so what made that interesting to me is the fact that, like, the way I understand it, the way Israeli law works, he actually can become an Israeli citizen. So I feel like in his penance work, so to speak, there's going to be a lot of him going back and forth to the land of Israel and actually having some sit-down conversations with some high-level people or whatnot in a very public way or whatnot. And I feel like this is going to be an ongoing thing. I kind of feel like because it's become known now that he's of a Sephardic Jewish lineage or whatnot, that he's going to be held to an account to that, in a sense, to where, like, again, like what he's saying, like he's learning, he's becoming the sacrificial lamb in a sense, right? Like, so like he's going to be expected to build the bridges between the what he was calling like Black Jews in the entertainment community and I guess the rest of the world and whatnot, or the Black community, etc., whatnot. So I, for one, am very intrigued by this whole thing, and intrigued to see how it all plays out or whatnot, because there's a lot of implications and a lot of different directions in terms of how things go down and whatnot. But yeah, I was thrown for a loop because I thought he was definitely like down for the count with the statements that he made. But he might get a different second chance than the average individual being that he has the particular unique ability to build bridges in between certain communities, given his ancestry or whatnot. So he seemed like he wanted to be able to use that for certain purposes. The AJC seemed like they wanted to use those abilities to heal or to build bridges in another direction or whatnot. And it's going to be interesting to see where they agree, where they disagree, and where the bridges actually get built. And I'll say that one more time, where the bridges actually get built. But one more time, when you hear Nick Cannon saying this stuff that I read to you, don't be surprised, because or it shouldn't be surprised, and it should be something you should be familiar with at this juncture, because it's all there in black and white. And so I feel like I'm saying all this to say that don't be surprised when fighting anti-Semitism becomes equally as important to what you hear him talking about, in terms of also fighting racism and all that type of stuff, right? Yeah, what's interesting about this too, and I forgot to touch on this at the outset, and this is why I titled, or you'll see the thumbnail for this at one point. And so what was interesting about this conversation was that the rabbi talked about the concept of new anti-Semitism, so he said, when I grew up in New York, and I didn't really see anti-Semitism. I grew up in a really insular Jewish community, etc., whatnot. He's like, but now he's like, I'm seeing synagogues getting shot up, etc., etc., etc. He's like, I'm in a new era of anti-Semitism. This is a new type of anti-Semitism. And so I feel like there's a push to identify a new threat, and understand it as anti-Semitism and whatnot. And what's interesting about that is how they're linking it with racism and other things and whatnot. So it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be real interesting to see where the bridges actually get built on this one. This is something I'm going to be paying attention to real thorough as it plays out. For me, I'm saying you heard it here first. I think this ends with the photo op of Nick Cannon at the Wailing Wall. That's me personally. That's me. I got a hunch like throughout all of this, he's gonna have a I'll say come to Jerusalem moment. And you just might see your man take out that citizenship. I got a hunch. But if he does or if he doesn't, what's going to be even more interesting to see is, again, like how he moves within the entertainment community with this message of anti-Semitism now. Because it seems like this organization that he's talking with is really geared towards making that a priority universally. Like, so they're talking about like dealing with the UN, other world leaders, et cetera, whatnot. So I thought this was going to be like a quick story and then it was going to blow over. Like, yeah, you kind of just sunned yourself and your career's done. But like, it seems like this has many more interesting chapters to unfold. I'll just say it like that. And so I'm going to be eagerly watching and awaiting to see how this plays out, what other celebrities pop up, how they pop up, et cetera. But with that, I'm going to jump off this stream. You know, let me do this right quick. Oh, I didn't even share my screen properly the whole time. My fault, fam. I didn't even share my screen. My fault, fam. But I did link everything I was talking about below, so y'all can go check it out down there. So with that, family, y'all have a good one. I see my man Jay Grant. Appreciate you, brother, man. He says, I wish Nick Cannon would create the bridge for scholars like yourself to be given the platform to speak while we have the attention. See, this is the interesting thing is, well, I appreciate what you're saying. While I'm technically not a scholar, he's talking about like, yeah, let's try to make that happen. So that's what I'm saying. I'm interested to see where the bridges actually get built. Because it seems like he wants to do some give and take with it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that should be interesting. But again, one more time, I say peace and love, family. Y'all have a good one. And yeah, go check out the interview down below and go check out the articles, etc. And familiarize yourself with the glossary and the information they're talking about. Let me say it like this: you'll probably find the same thing that I found, that it made the conversation that I was listening to a little bit more thick or a little bit deeper, like it had more layers to it or whatnot. So yeah, go check it out. But with that, I say peace and love, family.